I'm Ashley Yarbanek, Director of Member Relations here with the Mortgage Bankers Association, and I also run the residential side of mPact, which is our young professionals networking group. And John and I created this Spotlight Award. We got together a couple months ago and thought that this would be a really good idea for just to be able to spotlight the young professionals in our industry who are really making moves and going above and beyond, whether that's in their own organizations or in the industry as a whole. And yeah, when I saw your nomination come in, and I think John can attest to this, we were really impressed with everything that you are doing with Stairs Financial. And I would love to really just hear what your company is, what it does, what it's doing for the industry, and your journey. I really want to spotlight you as a young professional. I mean, that's what this award is all about. And
Just to introduce myself, John McMullen here. I'm the Senior Policy Specialist of Residential Policy and Strategic Industry Engagement. And I would like to say congratulations again for being spotlighted. I felt that when we were looking at your application, that you exemplified all the qualities and characteristics of a young professional who is moving and shaking and doing exemplary work in the industry. And it should be someone that ought to be spotlighted. When Ashley and we sat down
Thank
some
you.
months back, yeah. We were like, there's going to be a shift in the next 20 years. A lot of the baby boomers, Generation X, are going to be planning about retirement or just falling out of the workforce. And who's going to be the next set of leaders that's going to be taking the banner? Many of those people are working day in and day out with their heads down. No one really knows who they are.
Yeah.
But with our resources, we can leverage that and we can put you on the news link and on our Wisdom Wednesdays platforms where the echo chamber can see exactly who these next leaders can be. So this is a great opportunity to network, expand your social capital, and also be positioned for continued career success. And having said all of that, the question that I have is, so what inspired you to get into the mortgage finance industry?
Yeah. I think that when earlier in my career, I remember I had a conversation with my mom. And I had gone to college, I had a good job, I had, was starting to save. And she asked me kind of, casually, so like, are you ready to buy a house? Like, well, when are you ready to do this? And I wanted to buy a house. It was really important. It's my number one financial goal. But it felt so hard. Naturally, affordability is a huge problem, still today in the industry. And,
Mhm.
home prices have risen considerably while wages have remained comparatively stagnant. But my mother, told me about my grandfather, who was one of the first Black homeowners in his county, in Greene County.
Mm.
And this is in Alabama, rural Alabama.
Oh, well.
So he served in World War II. He then got a loan from the GI Bill to buy a house, 1951, 52. And the wealth he created from that, not only, put a roof over my mom and my uncle's heads, but also that's how we entered the middle class, right? And so, she told me about the importance of that sacrifice. And then obviously, she raised me as a single parent school teacher. And so when I was around, she bought an apartment right here in New York City. And the wealth that she created from that investment, helped put me in the position to have the opportunities that I've had in my life, right? So to your question, right, as far as, the next generations, how are we going to be able to partake in that? How are we going to be able to have a chunk of that American dream? That's what inspired me and the rest of the team here at Stairs to sort of start our journey and building a platform that's designed for these first-time home buyers and helping them educate and find mortgage solutions that make home affordability a little bit easier.
Yeah. That's great. Definitely great to hear. And so it appears that you have long had a baseline knowledge of the importance of home ownership, particularly people in the community of color. Those World War II veterans, once they exited the war, they were given GI benefits. And one of those beneficiaries was my grandfather as well. He bought some
Oh,
property.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, in Georgia. This was back in the late 1940s, maybe early 50s as well, and literally built
Okay.
the house by hand. It was about 5 bedrooms. He had 4 kids and some dogs, and had his own produce out in the side on 2 acres of land. and the house is still standing. And so we're having a debate with one of my aunts about keeping it because the importance of maintaining your land when there's a lot of development going on. I'm just trying to make her
Absolutely.
understand that. But I too understood early on that a house definitely has a lot of more benefits than just building wealth, but it's a place of security. It's a place where all things kind of happen. It's where the soul of things happen. And so the fact that you're creating a business that is specialized specifically in that, I think it's really, really good. Really good.
No, and
Now,
I think it also speaks to, some of the sad statistics that we see as far as, the millennial and Gen Z generation, but also, more specifically, right, Black, Latino, and Asian home buyers still lagging, their white homeowner, counterparts, right? And so, I'm glad that we're starting here and that we're starting with this conversation, but, ultimately, our work here at Stairs is really designed to try to narrow that gap and designed to try to create, more homeowners in our generations, kind of in a similar way.
Love for you to go into your background a little bit before founding Stairs Financial. What did you do before founding a company?
Yeah. So I started my career as a management consultant. And so I worked mostly for banks, finance companies, and it was sort of like a general strategy role. It was a great first job out of college because I could work with executives and work with senior folks to try to understand what are the big problems that they're trying to solve, how do they think about solving them. But even, then, and this was, my first job out of college, I knew that I wanted to be those guys, right? Like I wanted to, to be the executive, the business builder, who was trying to solve these problems. And so I liked finance and I liked, banking and I liked those things. But I also liked technology. And so I ended up working for a couple of technology companies that served large corporations. But in my first job after consulting, I knew I wanted my own book of business. I knew I wanted my own clients, my own customers. I wanted control, over, how we think about marketing and working with the product team. And I think that was important for me to realize the value of like standing on your own 2 feet. And look, and not every, and not every quarter was pretty, right? I had some good quarters and some less good quarters. But part of what that taught me, is how to stand on your own 2 feet, right? And how to advocate for myself, both within an organization and outside, of the organization, right? And so that's kind of like where I learned to build a book business. So that in those sort of large technology companies. And then I joined a venture capital fund. And at that fund, I was a founder in residence. And at that fund, I had an opportunity to kind of think deeply about a problem that I wanted to go out and solve. So it's really, white space strategic kind of stuff. And then eventually you have to pick something to dive in and then go out and try to solve it. And for some of the reasons that, I was sharing after John's question, pretty quickly, I zeroed in on homeownership. How can we create more homeowners? And it's a really hard problem, as I think, all of us in the industry know. But at the same time, what I liked about that time and about that job is that it gave me room to introduce myself and talk to all of the different stakeholders in home ownership. So I talked to lenders, I talked to loan officers, I talked to real estate agents, I talked to mortgage brokers, I talked to home builders, I talked to home buyers as young as 19 and as old as in their 60s or 70s, to really just try to get an angle around all of the different problems and all the different opportunities in this industry. And ultimately, one of the things that, sort of our key moment, our key insight was that, so many home buyers only really knew one mortgage product. They knew a 20% down, conventional mortgage, right? That's the only product they knew about. And so, and then once, talking to industry, and I even left out like regulators and policy folks, because I talked to those guys too, I realized there were, many, many, many hundreds, thousands of different mortgage programs and products available. And so that disconnect between like all of these folks who are creating all these awesome programs, down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, special purpose credit programs, mortgage credit certificate, all of these benefits just weren't translating to people who needed them. And so having the time to think about that problem and ultimately, talk to not only, experts, but just everybody I could around the ecosystem led us to that insight. And that's, how we started building this mortgage platform that's, specialized on those mortgage products that helps get new folks into homes. So yeah, and that's when I started Stairs, and now I'm here.
Can you go into a little bit about what actually Stairs Financial does?
Yeah, absolutely. So Stairs Financial is a mortgage marketplace designed for first-time home buyers to connect them with lenders who can help them buy homes with these, sort of special mortgage product with down payment assistance and these other benefits. But we're not an originator. We partner with lenders, and we focus on lenders who are excited and have experience with serving these first-time home buyers, these future clients for life, to help get them over the over the hump to be able to afford a home. Okay. So in that way, yeah, that's us. So consumers, they come to us. They share a little bit of information about themselves, some financial information, some professional information, and also where they want to buy a home. We then look or sort of connect to our database of all different programs, but also our collection of lender partners. And then we show the consumers, hey, this lender can help you buy a home with this loan program. And if you do it, you can get $10,000 of down payment assistance. And so then they connect with the lender to originate the loan. So that's Stairs.
Got it. Well, I will definitely be coming to you because I am going to be a first-time home buyer in the next, let's say, year or so. And
I love it.
Congratulations in advance.
There you go. You have another client.
That's awesome to hear. First off, really exciting for you. Congratulations. And second of all, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly, you are the kind of person we're trying to help get into a home. So would love for you to check it out, stairsfinancial.com.
Yeah. On this platform, Wisdom Wednesdays, we discuss a lot about mentorships and its importance, particularly in career trajectory. Have you had mentors or role models that have influenced your career in a deep, profound way? Is there anyone that comes to mind when you think about some of the things that you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. And so mentorship is probably where it starts, right? I think having a strong relationship with strong mentors, it kind of helps you understand what's possible and help you understand, how to achieve it, right? I think I want to call out Dave Eisenberg, who is one of the investors in our company, who previously built a real estate company in the prop tech space. And so, naturally, right, he is, quite literally invested in our success. But before he ever invested in the company, he was helpful for making introductions for us, helpful for problem solving for us, and helpful for, making really close connections for us in the industry. And I think that, to the extent that I do have, advice to share, right, I think a lot of people think about mentorship as needing to be really formal, as needing to, to have like a mentor that you declare and you can say, oh, well, I already have a mentor. I don't need this person's mentorship. You need a lot of mentors, or at least I know I do. Right. So when I think about the people who I'm meeting, in the industry just in the last, several years since we started Stairs, like I consider them mentors. When I think about people that I've worked previously with, I consider them mentors, right? Because, I think ultimately a mentor is anybody who takes time to invest in you, to teach you, to, help you understand even what it is that you want to do and how you want to achieve it.
I love that. I think, and I've said this a lot on this platform, I think, and I love that you touched on it, that mentors don't need to be formal. I think the most effective mentors are the ones that generate naturally, and you find that connection and you have that sounding board, and it's really all about relationships and building that relationship. And so I think that's really great that you have found that, and that you can have many mentors in all different facets, from personal to professional, and multiple on either side.
Yes.
Like there isn't a one size fits all. There's so many different moving parts in this industry and in your life that you can have a ton. It doesn't matter. There's no limit.
And another thing I'll add here is that, especially, in our industry, right? I think that, a lot of the folks who have accomplished so much just, are older, right? And I think that a lot of times when you think about mentorship, at least I know I see older mentors, I see experience, and I think that's important. But I also think that there's role, as you think about like your collection of mentors, for peer mentors, right? For folks who are, in your generation, maybe even, who are doing something pretty similar, to what you're doing, right? I know that, like as a technology company, right? Like I have a lot of founders who are my age and who are working also in real estate, who I consult with. I think about a lot of, our clients and our partners, right? Like, sure, we provide a valuable service to them, but also part of that partnership is learning, right? And so like there's a lot of appetite for peer mentors as well. And so, as I think about, okay, am I engaging, my network? Am I engaging, my collection of mentors actively and effectively, right? It's really easy, to reach for, the CEO with 30 years of experience, right? But we also have to remember to kind of, accompany that with the peer mentor, right? Because sure, there might be less experience there, but there's probably like a little bit easier of a connection there, right? There might be, it might be somebody, where like for a more senior mentor, you want like the 30-year career vision. But for a peer mentor, it's like, look, like, what are you doing right now with like your lead list? Like, how are you building like your brand right now? Like, you just got a promotion. That's awesome. I would like to put myself forward for a promotion. How did you do that, a month ago versus, how did you do that 20 years ago? There's room for that as well.
Yeah.
That's such a cool perspective. I haven't actually ever like heard or like thought of the peer mentorship before, but it's so true, right? Like you said, there's definitely the time and place for that 30-year goal setting mentor and career goals and looking 10, 20 years down the road. Absolutely. And it's really good that so many of those people in our industry are so willing to give back as well. But like you said, there is appetite for the peer-to-peer mentor. I mean, I think about just my friends in the industry that are my age. I call on them all the time, and I don't necessarily consider them a mentor per se, but
Sure.
They're my friends making moves in the industry, and I look up to them or I admire what they're doing. And yeah, I mean, asking for what are they doing to move forward in their career? How did you have that tough conversation with your boss that you just had last month? Or what did you do to prepare for that? Like little things like that, I think can be really, really impactful for the young professionals and in the mPact community. So that's a really great perspective.
Awesome. Yeah. So talking about mentorship and peer mentorships and just falling in line. So how do you adapt and integrate yourself in a traditionally dominant white work culture? Has that been any of the discussion topics with your mentors?
I'm not going to say it hasn't been a challenge, right? I think that, ultimately, this is an industry that is traditionally pretty white. I would say that, however, part of the luck or success that we have been able to have is to find champions who understand not only that there are problems in this industry as far as Black home ownership and things like that, but also that there are problems in this industry as far as creating space for professionals, who look different than them, right? And I think that it's really about finding champions. And I've had a handful of conversations, where the first 25 minutes looks standard and looks professional, and the last 5 minutes is, hey, I understand that this is a tough spot. I understand that, as a Black founder, you're going to look different than some people in the room, and therefore, here's how I'm going to go above and beyond. Here's an introduction that I can make for you because I'm rooting for you to win. And I think that that's something that I've been really touched and really truly appreciative of, is the support, and frankly, right, like, I don't want to pat you guys on the back too much, but this is a similar kind of thing, right? Like, you guys are giving me, this spotlight, and I hear that and appreciate that, and that's going to make my job a little bit easier to work in this industry.
I love that. Well, we're very happy to have you on. And
one more question as we close out. So Dave Stevens, one of the industry's leading experts for all things mortgage finance, had passed away. And there was some tributes that were taking place on the IMB conference in New Orleans this past month. And there was an encouragement, particularly for young professionals, to start using their voices, their platforms, to kind of speak on different trends that are happening in the industry. So I want to ask you the question now. What are some of the emerging trends or challenges that you foresee happening in the space that may be a prevention towards affordability, or anything that you think that would be quite interesting to discuss in these last few minutes that we have to talk?
No, absolutely, right. And so forgive me, right, because this is my pet issue. But the biggest issue, I think, in home affordability is in, having enough finance products and having enough, frankly, financing designed for first-time home buyers. We are a generation, the millennial Gen Z generation. I believe that ultimately the 20%, conventional mortgage is not going to be how most of us buy homes. We're actually already seeing that today, right? So the average first-time home buyer in America puts down somewhere between 7 and 8% of a down payment on a home, not the 20 that we hear about, right? And I give the industry a lot of credit for creating these new products and these new programs to help fill this gap. But we need more, and we need more folks dedicated to understanding and dedicating to originating and underwriting this generation of folks with these new programs. I think that that's, one of the biggest things that will create more home buyers, and ultimately, one of the biggest things that we need as an industry, because I'm looking out at a couple, 1 or 2 generations that are going to have really hard times affording or being able to afford to buy a home. The demand is there. Folks are motivated, folks are doing what they can. Folks, people have good jobs, people have good credit, people are saving, people are budgeting. And I think that, in the media, there is this perception that maybe, young people aren't working hard enough, or they just, need to kind of, get figured out, or cut out a Starbucks cup of coffee, right? Well, guess what? We're doing it. We're cutting it out. But ultimately, we as an industry need to kind of meet these young buyers halfway. And one of the ways that we can do that is, increase the investment, increase the onboarding of these new programs. And ultimately, then, we'll see the response from mortgage investors and the response from the government, because obviously, that's a piece of this pie too, to create more of these opportunities for folks to invest in, and to create, the sort of win-win outcome that keeps our industry strong and creates more home buyers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yep. Very comprehensive.
I'm glad. And thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate this recognition, and it was so awesome to talk to you guys.
Likewise.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.